Hey, it's Johnny King on another episode of The Johnny King Show. I'm sitting here with my favorite torturer, Kristen Douhan, who's my physical therapist. She does like to torture me once a month, and I pay for it. I literally pay her to torture me through dry needling and other things.
And you feel better.
I
do.
do.
So it's fine.
I do. I feel
it works out.
It's always a bittersweet thing we've got going on.
It's a love-hate relationship.
It is.
Typically. For not just you, it's a lot of people. a lot of people.
I thought you meant like you hated me back. Yeah.
No. You just love to hate the torture sessions, but you know in the end it's worth it.
Yes.
A lot like life, really.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So she's a good sport being on the podcast, but why don't you give them a little bit of feedback, a little bit background on who you are, how you got into physical therapy, a little bit of your credentials, because you work with the men's national rugby team, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I started off my career as an athletic trainer, certified athletic trainer, and worked with sports teams for many years, USA Rugby being one of them. And then I also worked with the Colorado Rapids, and it was really through my work with teams, and I also worked in a clinic as an athletic trainer, that I just saw so much more of what I wanted to learn and develop my skills and grow. And I worked with some amazing physicians and other physical therapists, and so I decided to go back to physical therapy school after working for a bit, and received my doctorate in physical therapy, and went back to working for USA Rugby. And it's been an amazing long journey, but very happy I did it. Yeah. But yes, it was one of those, I'm glad I didn't know what I was getting into, but I just am so grateful that I did what I did, and everything happens for a reason, you know?
Long in what way? What do you mean? Like, I'm sure there's plenty of story behind that. But
plenty of story. Yeah, you've got to do 3 podcasts for that.
Part 1 of 3.
Stay tuned. Yeah. We'll be back. Yeah. No, just long in just a lot of respects. One of them being that if you're going to be in pro sports and you're going to play with the big boys, you have to prepare yourself, and you have to be very educated, and so it was a long road in that way. And I would say, as a female in a men's professional sports setting, I had to work a little bit harder, and not complaining about it, but it made me stronger, and made me know more of what my goals were and what I wanted and what I needed to do to achieve them. And I think, it says a lot that, USA Rugby wanted me back after I left to go to school, and they welcomed me back with open arms and wanted me back. And so just, in that respect, and getting your doctorate is not for the faint of heart. So I guess I would say it was a long road in that respect, as well as that it was just a really difficult journey and not easy, but I'm definitely a better person for it, for sure.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Working with the men's rugby team, then you probably see some gnarly. You're working on, like you said, the big boys, literally the big boys.
Yep.
As well as the quick and nimble.
Yes.
Fast boys.
Yes.
Everything in between. Right?
Yes.
It's like football.
Totally. Yep.
Tons of different style of athletes, I'm sure.
Yep.
Big and strong versus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, and that's what I enjoy about it, actually, is every position requires a different skill set and a need, and I may have to work on power with our front row, but I need to work on speed with a wing. And you can't stereotype somebody just because they're big and massive. You have to meet everybody where they're at, and some people are more sensitive and some people are more tough, and you flow with that person and their individual personality to do the best you can for them and work together to help them feel better to reach their goal.
Yeah, I love that. But why I wanted to have you on, obviously, is because you helped me just with like what I'm a weekend warrior, if that, you know. But I take my health very seriously, as a lot of people do. I feel like in Colorado, just because so much of our culture here locally is active.
Sure.
And yet, for men and women who are listening to this, they may not, I mean, like I do a lot of things for my health.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about my chiropractor, right? My nutritionist. We do, I have you and a bunch of like a team that helps me stay fit and healthy just for longevity's sake.
Yeah.
But obviously you're working with professionals, but then you're working with older people, younger people, teenagers, right? Everything in between. But what is kind of a unique, I guess, portfolio of people, right? And what got you into, like, what was the allure in the first place of getting into this work? And
well, and you know, to go to your point of, you know, working with professional athletes, I think what I love about my job is I don't want to just help professional athletes, or I don't think that, oh, I only do that and nothing else. Like, I find as much joy in helping a mom pick up her baby. Anybody, whatever their goal is, that's important to me, and I want to be a part of that journey. I mean, I had a gentleman who was 92, one of my favorites, and he just said, you know, Kristen, I want to live out the rest of my days the best that I can. And that makes me want to cry, like, just because, and that's important to me, and that's as important of a goal as someone to be able to run around on a field, but it's as important to me, or more important, to help a 92-year-old man live his life to the fullest, whatever that is. And I love the spectrum, and I think that's what drives me and motivates me every day, is because I've had people in tears because, you know, a mom will say, I picked up my baby and I didn't have back pain, and it's life changing, you know, to be able to do things like that. And that's what motivates me every day and makes me want to just be ready for the day and prepared, because somebody is counting on me and my brain to try and help work together with them to figure out how to help them meet their goal. And like I said, that's what keeps me going and drives me.
Is that a big part of the fun though? Is I would think it's kind of fun where you're trying to diagnose something, you're trying to figure out, like, putting the puzzles together with previous injuries or symptoms, and it's kind of a big
and that's, you know, being a problem solver, and, you know, some problems are easier to solve than others, but it's so interesting and fascinating. And every day my patients teach me. They think I'm teaching them, but they teach me, and what they give me on any given day. But, you know, I'll have people that, you know, I say, do you have any other injuries? And no. And then you're 7 visits in, and they're like, oh, well, I sprained my ankle in high school, or I tore my hamstring. And that's important, because everything, right, works together. We're this giant Jenga block system that just tries to make these micro adjustments to keep you upright and moving against gravity. And anything in your history and in your life, it's all important. It all needs to come into their story to help figure it out. And that really makes the job interesting and fun and different, and keeps you going. And sometimes takes you off when I can't figure it out right away.
Yeah, well, I think it resonates just because, I mean, how many times have you, every single time come in and you say, well, how's it going this past month? You know, I'm like, I can't even remember. Right. You know, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you know, maybe this has been an issue, or this has been an issue. And I don't even remember sometimes my past ailments or my injuries until we start to connect the dots. Yep. You know? Yep. So what, kind of getting into some of the nitty gritty, what do you feel like is some of the most common challenges, physical ailments that people have that they're coming in for? Is there anything?
I mean, historically, by the numbers, low back pain is the number one thing that we'll see in physical therapy. Right. And, you know, for that reason, we have to do clinical rotations in PT school. And so one of the rotations I went on, I sought out a clinic that worked mostly with spine because I said, okay, this is our biggest problem. Why? Like, what is going on? This is our biggest problem, and I want to know how to treat it and do that. So historically, by the data, it's low back pain. I see pretty much a little bit of everything, and I would never want to specialize just because everything is so connected. You know, if I became a shoulder specialist, but your shoulder pain was coming from your right ankle because you sprained your right ankle in high school, then I might miss it, you know? So I do enjoy that variety as well.
I think people that are not as educated as you are sometimes probably have a hard time connecting the fact that it's like, what are you talking about? That far up the chain can be, but it's true, right? It's true,
and it, you know, it's my job to do my best to try and explain why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it is all connected. And then if I can show them, if I can do, you know, techniques that we can call a correction, but if you can do a correction or a technique to make that ankle work a little bit better, and then show them that, oh yeah, your arm feels better, they get, you know, you get this wow, I'm like, okay, I can kind of buy into it a little bit when I can feel what you're saying. You have to connect that, or else, it's really hard.
Right. And I think, again, it's, for me, I'm passionate about it because it's quality of life, of course.
Yes.
You know, I'm not 92 like one of your clients, but someday I will be.
Yep.
Knock on wood.
Yep.
I do feel like it's quality of life from between here and there.
Yeah.
And for people who, you know, especially getting into your later 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and you haven't necessarily done a whole lot to work on mobility, you might start feeling like, you know what, I just have a bum knee, and that's just the way it is, and I have to give up running, right? But I think with the stuff that we've done, and I doubt you have it all memorized, but I mean, a lot of it is like, oh, you can see that my knee, one of my knees kind of buckles into the left, you know, because of, you know, my hips being off or whatever. I think that's the kind of the cool part is when you can kind of tell me, because I'll often ask them, what are you doing?
Yes.
Why are we doing this?
Yes.
So I'm just curious. Right?
Yeah.
But I think that's the cool part. And then we can see within 60 minutes that there's been a big change of how certain muscles are firing when they weren't before, right?
Yes. And you can feel it, right? You can feel the difference when we start getting into it and we change some of these movement patterns. By the end, I think that's what it is you can feel that, which means your quality of life is better because you're moving better. And you end up with this, you know, the mentor of mine called it beautiful movement. You just want to create this beautiful movement, like this ease and flow as you move your body again against gravity in the world. And when everything is working together and stacking and your Jenga block is all working together, it's easier to just navigate life, which makes life feel better.
Right. How often do you feel like, I mean, I come in and see you once a month, you know, obviously you get a new client who has some challenges. You kind of work to get the Jenga blocks in alignment, which might take several sessions or many sessions. You know, is there a certain protocol that people, you know, do most people fall into like a once a month thing once they're kind of in maintenance? Is it more often than that? Like, it's hard to say in the sense of like, because why I'm saying that is because I feel like people that are listening, if they're thinking about like, okay, I've never even gotten physical therapy unless, you know, they actually have an accident or some type of surgery.
Yes.
Which is a lot of times the frustration that I've noticed in myself and other people. You get surgery, like Allison, our friend who referred me to you, is like, she gets surgery and then like, well, what do I do now? They're like, see ya. Good luck with it.
Yes.
And then you might actually find some horrible physical therapists or personal trainers who only make it worse. And then you're like, what the hell? And then your quality of life and then your mental goes down, and next you know you've you know.
Now we're in a spiral. Yes. And that's part 3 probably of our podcast. But and I do run the gamut. I mean, I do see a lot of cases where unfortunately it hasn't gone well somewhere else, and so then we're having to undo and try and unwind some movement patterns. And it's hard because your brain is this powerful controller of everything. And we have to retrain your brain and your nervous system on what we want it to do. So sometimes movement can be tight or muscle can be tight, but sometimes just because your body doesn't know how to move through that range, and we have to teach it how to let go of this so that this can fire better, and to wrap your brain around that not only once but with repetition and endurance. And it takes quite a bit of repetition. So it definitely depends on where somebody's at, how many surgeries they've had. I mean, again, unfortunately, I've seen people out of multiple hip surgeries or multiple knee surgeries or multiple hip and knee, and then you're spending quite a bit of time repatterning and trying to get things to work together again versus fighting each other, or it makes this old ingrained movement pattern that you're in. I told Allison before, and I told many people this, like, your body does the best it can for you. You can be mad at your body all you want, but it really had the best of intentions. Your body is trying to keep you alive. We're very much genetically the same now as we were 10,000 years ago, and we were hardwired for this fight or flight. And so if it's not moving well, it's just going to find a way to keep you moving so that you can hunt and gather and run from that saber-tooth tiger. So, appreciate your body for the fact that it's trying to help you, but it went awry a little bit, and it doesn't help if you go to a place that makes it worse, or they're just like, oh, go do these exercises, and you come back but you're using all the wrong muscles. So then you're reinforcing this movement pattern, and then you just end up in this sequelae that's takes some time, and it depends on the person. And sometimes they'll say, well, how long? And I have to say, I don't know. There's no, this is not like immediately post-op where it's 1 to 6 weeks you're in this phase, and it's I don't know. It depends on how we can get your brain and your nervous system to dial in. But I always have hope that we can get there.
I think that's the biggest challenge and frustration, like I said, is maybe having an injury or having surgery, whatever the case might be, then not having been given much guidance in your recovery and rehab. And then it's just like, how does anyone know? Because this might be their first time going to a physical therapist. How to qualify a physical therapist or a trainer? Like, is there a practical way for people to be able to find someone good? Is it just all word of mouth? Which it's very ironic that you bring this up, because just last week I was speaking with somebody else who was had surgery, and she said, you need to be the quarterback. We need a direction, exactly like you said. And she said, you need to just put it out there that you're the quarterback to call, and you can say, go here, go here, go here, this direction, this is good, that. And she had a very valid point, because I talked to so many people that they just don't know. They don't know where to start, or because of insurance restrictions, oh, you're at your 20 visits, okay, bye. And they're just cut off, and they're like, now what? Like, what do I do? And and sometimes you can't just be sent off with a home program, and you need some hands-on in combination with your exercises. That's been very validated to be the best combo of some mobility with stability, until you can get into that repatterning phase. But I think word of mouth. But my wheels have definitely been turning, actually, since she was talking to me about that, of how do we help these people that don't have a direction. And I think things like this are really important, which is why I agree, physical therapist. I'm more of in the background kind of thing, but it's so important to me to have people start having a resource or a place to go, or just what do I do? We can call 4 plumbers to get a quote or an estimate on what's going on, but
where do we go for physical therapists for our body, for what my problem is? And so, you know, a lot of the folks I see are definitely a lot of word of mouth, and, you know, the word does get out there if you are looking. That's what happens a lot, but there definitely needs to be some sort of direction system.
Yeah, some type of solution.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's the frustration, obviously. And
like
you said, then you end up having to undo so much.
Right.
And that's even more disheartening mentally.
It's destructive.
Right.
Mentally.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. Given what you've done with the rugby team and things like that, what have been some of those, not to toot your own horn, but what have been some of those things that you have been able to work on that you've seen some pretty cool, either changes in a short amount of time during a game, or what have been some of your cases that you look back on fondly, like, oh man, I crushed that one, or anything that comes to mind of some really...
Oh my gosh.
Putting you on the spot.
You really put me on the spot here. Yeah. This is no, I've had several, they're just great people to work with, but I guess a couple more recent cases where, one, we had a guy that was rehabbing his knee out in France and got stuck, and came early for camp. We were going to be meeting for camp, and came early for camp so we could work together and see if we could get him unstuck.
When you say stuck, what do you mean?
He had reached a plateau and he wasn't feeling stronger. He wasn't feeling more powerful. Running hurt. Like, he was just having a lot of pain. His single leg strength was not improving. And so we worked together, really got into the nitty gritty of his mechanics, and long story short, his feet, his toes, he was trying to do too much with his second toe. And again, it's mind-blowing stuff, but anyway, and we got him to clear the hurdle, and he did really well, and was really pleased. And that was his comeback. He was gone, he was out of it for a year, and that was his comeback, and he did really well. And cool. So yeah, that was really, it's so neat for me to see them on the field. Like, that's so rewarding. And I had another player that we were under the gun. Like, he went home from the World Cup, or we got him back, and he got injured in the first game of the World Cup of 4. And we got him back, and it's so rewarding, again, for me to help him meet his goal, and for him to hug me and say, "You've saved my World Cup. Thank you." Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, I just got chills. That just, as a former athlete and just as a human, like, it's just, that's my purpose in life, is just to help people want to be where they want to go. Help them to get there, however that is. But so I guess those are a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I literally owe my life, I think, to physical therapists in Park City, because that was 4 years ago, and that was when I had my blood clot. I didn't know I had it. Yes. But I was literally on crutches at that point. It had been weeks festering. It's getting worse. Went in to see her, and she just, spent an hour just like, oh, but you got the strength there. Yeah. And then just like, with all of her deducing, was like, this leg is colder, this leg is warmer, this one's pinker, one's more yellow. Like, this is gonna sound really weird, but I'd go to the hospital and get an ultrasound. I was like, what? For blood clot? Yeah. And sure enough. Yeah. Yeah. I would, and then so I just like, I give you and her and people in the field credit, because you spend so much time working that you can see how things should normally work. Yeah. Yes. But then you're taking sensitive points or things that are not working, and you're connecting the dots to be like, okay, this is your second toe. Yes. Yes. And he was even saying, what? And you fixed it, and he's like, holy cow, that is crazy. And this is one of my big boys. I mean, he was a beast. And I'm like, you use more than your second toe. You've got a lot going on here. Use it. But again, it was just one of these crazy ingrained movement patterns. And, credit to your physical therapist. I just think that people
just want someone to take the time, like take the time to assess and think. And I mean, mine always starts with a question of, wait a second, I'm not quite sure yet what's going on, but I know something's not right.
Right.
And I'm going to take a minute to try and figure out what's not quite right and why, you know? So kudos to her for just taking the time.
Yeah, exactly. Connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots. Yep.
It's saving my life in that sense.
Yep.
Yeah. When I went in and saw her, like, you know, a couple of days later, she was like, "For real? That's what that was like." Yeah. And she almost started crying. You know? She's like, "Oh my gosh, like, that's intense."
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You just never know what you're gonna run into.
Right. Well, and sometimes I think people are afraid to be wrong, or, oh, I don't want to send him to the hospital if I'm wrong, and he's spent this time, but it's better to be wrong than and just
sorry.
Right. Like, total epitome of that saying. Just check it out, then you know, and move on to the next thing, you know. So
you know, I've written not necessarily about you, just my experience of being tortured with you in my book. You know, I wrote about dry needling and the lessons you can learn about dry needling, of stepping into the pain.
Oh no!
For long-term benefit.
I think I need to read this chapter.
Yeah, I should tell you about it
in detail.
I don't mention your name at all. Just, you know.
Other than Torture Queen.
About the Torture Queen. That.
Thank you.
What people, a lot of times, even on my social media and stuff like that, when I posted like pictures or video of what you're doing on my leg and stuff like that, people are like, "What is dry needling?" They don't fully understand it. Sure. Explain what dry needling is.
Yes, that is a great question, because it's people don't know. So dry needling uses a needle that's similar to an acupuncture needle. It's a very small needle. And the theory is totally different, however, than acupuncture. Yeah. So with dry needling, we take the needle, and if you have a tight spot or a trigger point in a muscle at a cellular level does this. So it goes into a bind and comes back out. So if there's an energy crisis and a muscle gets stuck in this bind, then you can stick the needle in to release that bind and then start moving more normally. Now again, if you do needle it, you want to do something to try and reinforce your gain so it doesn't want to go back to tight and stuck again. But that's dry needling. It helps release these tight spots or trigger points in a muscle, and we can often get to deeper layers than we might be able to with doing some soft tissue work or something like that.
Explain a little bit more. So like, you've got the bind, you stick it in, it essentially actually binds more?
Releases the bind.
It releases the bind, I get that. But but why does it do that? Because anytime you're doing it with me, it actually feels like it seizes up even more, or what do you call it? Just like flinches, or
it jumps.
It jumps.
Yeah,
right?
You get that twitch.
You get the twitch.
Yeah.
But why is it doing it? It's reacting to the pain or the.
It's reacting to the needle going into the muscle. Right. Yeah, it's reacting to that tight spot.
Right.
Releasing. You can leave it in longer if it's achier, and then sometimes it's released, and that's why I say if it feels tight, then you have to do something to reinforce that muscle to help it to remember, because you've been trying to walk around like this with your muscle not moving. So then I release it, and then it's saying, "Holy smokes! Now I'm supposed to function, and I don't know what you want me to do." Yeah. So now I'm gonna freak out and go back and get really tight. Yeah. So. The goal is not for it to get tight. Often what I'll tell people is give it 24 to 48 hours. You may be stiff and sore from me, then you're going to like me better after that. Yeah. Then it starts into this new movement pattern. So that's why I say, let's say I dry needle your calf, often because we are bipedal humans, it can feel very stiff in the calf. There's a lot of blood flow there. We're on our feet as humans. So I encourage people to walk to get blood flow to activate that muscle now within its new range, so it doesn't stay stiff and sore. So yes, at the beginning, people get sore. I actually had somebody today who broke his foot, and he was in a boot, and so he's got a lot of stiffness and soreness. And he said, "Man, for about a day, I was really sore, and then I was good, and then it was better, and I felt really loose, and I felt better overall." So it's got to work through that, and again, the brain and the nervous system and the muscles all have to work through it to create this new pattern, because it's now not trying to function in a shortened position.
Right. Which is the part of the metaphor that I use. Which is ultimately like if you're walking through life and you're wounded.
Yeah.
Right. Metaphorically speaking, to guys that I'm writing to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes going into pain,
Yep.
enduring the pain, it actually getting worse
Yep.
for a day or two.
Yeah.
Things actually become better.
Yeah.
Which is just counterintuitive to what our
right.
our nervous system wants to do.
Right.
You know?
And I think life in general, no one wants to be in pain, right? I mean,
or
we
make
don't
it worse.
or make it worse.
Right.
And if they've had experience too of like something's been made worse, they're like, wait, time out.
Yeah.
So again, that's on me to be a good communicator, to say this is what's going to happen. This is why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
This is what the result is going to be.
Yeah.
Give it X amount of time, and then you should feel better. And this is what you're going to do to get there. And I think good communication is so key in that fact,
mm-hmm.
especially with needling, because you can't get sore.
Mm-hmm.
But the benefits are definitely worth it.
Definitely
I think.
worth it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's like I said, that's the gratitude that I feel for you, my chiropractor, various other people, because through my tearing my hip flexor in high school, or
mm-hmm.
my blood clots, or my various issues, or just pulling my left quad anytime,
mm-hmm.
or my hamstring. I've done that multiple times because it's been probably stuff that's coming from that torn hip flexor. It's had me kind of question, like, well, maybe I'm getting to the point where I need to give up softball or soccer or baseball or basketball, like all these sports that I love to play to this day. And to me, that's like, I can't imagine not playing. Yeah. But it's really cool when, again, you can find professionals like yourself who can really, literally and figuratively dig in there to
right
to align things so that you actually get that quality of life back.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and you maybe used to love to run, but your hips or your knees mm-hmm. or whatever, your ankles, anything that's up and down the chain is bothering you, I feel like it's worth at least pursuing and not letting yourself fall victim to a story that you just create that, you know what, I'm out.
That's it.
I'm done.
Yeah.
It's not, that's just a story that you've created based off of the evidence or the accident.
Yes.
But like get yourself in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing and just see what happens. Yeah.
And I've had people come to me that say, I don't have an injury. I don't remember an injury, but just I don't move quite right. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing what I want to do anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm like, let's look at it, and let's do a movement assessment. Let's see where we can go. I mean, that absolutely, because I hate hearing that, and that is one of the things I never want people to give something up just, because something is lingering or hurt or I'm 50, I can't do that anymore. Well, why? Yeah. Why not? Yeah. I mean, no. Yeah. I'm not okay with that. It's just do what you want to do. Don't let some arbitrary number or story keep you from doing that. Now, if you don't want to anymore, if you're like, okay, I've run for 30 years and I need a new hobby. Okay, fine, whatever. Yeah. Like, that's cool. But if it's not in alignment with what you want out of life, then don't accept it. Figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Don't accept it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which I think why it's great to have, like I said, coaches or mentors or advisors, if you will, who sometimes will actually not believe your story. Yes. And will believe in more possibility or potential in you physically, mentally, than you give yourself credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's I had somebody say that to me. She's like, I stopped believing in myself until I saw how much you believed in me, and that helped me believe in me again. And I thought that was really powerful because it just makes you stop again and think, this person is trusting me with their journey and their life, and I'm not going to give up. So don't you give up on me, because we'll figure it out. So
totally. That's cool. You've done a lot of work with me, at least, and I'm always fascinated again with especially the intricacies of feet. And man, does that stuff feel so good sometimes. No, it doesn't. But you'll get in on like a tiny little tendon, or you're just working on separating. Because I'm not even aware of like freaking how many bones are on the foot, and how the foot has so many different
yeah.
pieces to it all the way before you even get to your toes, and you're working on separating that. And, do you feel like is that just me, or is that like a common thing where people's feet are all bound up and it can just be
it depends. Anything else, it's just you. No, it depends. And sometimes people's feet are the driver, and sometimes people's feet get screwy because their something's going on with the hip. I mean, you have to be careful with some philosophies it's all top down, and some philosophies it's all bottom up. Mm. And I think you have to be really careful with that, because I don't think you can do that absolute. Mm. And so, some people are definitely feet drivers. Yeah. They have something going on with their foot, and that's what's disrupting up the chain. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's the other way. But I've definitely gotten more into the nitty-gritty intricacies of, I can't just look at even the foot as this global structure. You've got to break down the nitty-gritty on how each thing interplays through the whole foot. Mm-hmm. And again, it's some fun problem solving. But I will, to be fair, I don't like needling the feet because it hurts.
Yes.
You
haven't done that to me too much.
No, that's not generally my off the bat go to. It's super helpful. Exactly. Yeah. That's
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, bye. Thank you. I don't want to do that again. So yes, I usually wait down the road, because when you're learning how to needle, people needle you, right, in class. So you've got a bunch of rookies sticking you with some needles. So I've been at least, but so they're sticking with needles, and that in the feet was the one place that it made me tear up a little bit. So I said, oh man, okay. And it's good for me to feel. Yeah. So I know, I'm like, I know. Tear up, I did. It's fine. Yeah. But the feet they're not my favorite to needle.
Not good.
But yes, helpful.
You obviously you don't work on yourself, do you?
Sometimes.
I mean, I'm probably in some capacity.
Right? Yeah.
I think you've told me that you have dry needled yourself before, right?
Yeah.
Just for what? Just like a weekend thing, like,
No, my hippo hurts sometimes. I don't go home and just.
I just figure if you're the torture temptress, that's just what you love to do.
No, that's not my hobby. Not my hobby at home. No, but yes, if I have something that I need to get a quick reset, then I will.
Otherwise, you've got other guys either there, or you've got people that know you and can. Yeah,
I try not to bother people too much. They're busy. That's why I just try and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of things that you've had to work through your own life and physical career anything that ties into, like, I've seen this, or I've experienced this in myself, and thus this can relate to the client?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have very personal experience. So as a gymnast growing up, so I think I aged in dog years. And when I was 16, my body did not feel good. And so I stopped competing at 18, but I had a lot of back pain when I competed gymnastics. I injured my foot, which, knowing what I know now, I probably broke it, but never went to the doctor and did anything about it, because that's not what you do. You tough it out. And I do think I have a lot more empathy for my athletes now, for sure, with some of my own experiences. But so I'll have days where I have arthritic changes, but I know how to work through it and manage it and feel good, and make my back and my hip and my foot and everybody start working together. And I just don't let it go too long. I know enough now to say, okay, jump on this before this really starts bothering you. But I'll feel it if I have all left sides one day and I'm treating people all on the left side and I'm asymmetrical all day, it's like, I'm human. Holy smokes, like anybody who's asymmetrical all day long, be like, oh God, I'm a little tired on this side. Well, sure, you were using that side more than this side today, so as long as you work on keeping the balance, and I do okay. But I do, for a while I was wondering why I ever competed gymnastics, but now down the road, I'm very grateful for the life lessons it taught me and how I can feel so many things that I can only guess what somebody else is feeling. They know their body better than me, and I can't pretend that I know exactly how they're feeling because that's unique to them. I can only ask as many questions as I possibly can to help gain better insight into what they're feeling so that I can help them to feel better. You know, I want to put myself in their shoes, but not pretend to know exactly how they're feeling because everybody's so unique, you know? So.
Well, I mean, I've told you too, and I don't think we've got into too much, but I go to this place called OsteoStrong that helps with bone regeneration and bone strength. And a lot of what they talk about is their research saying like the human beings who have the most dense bones and skeletal systems are going to be the gymnasts, just because they're the impact, you know. And I mean, every time I watch the Olympics or I watch any type of floor exercises, you know, when they're tumbling, you know, especially that last like wham, you know, it's just like no kidding that they don't break something, and I'm sure they do many times. But I think it's interesting because that's what led me also to OsteoStrong, which has allowed me to look at my bone density and that sort of thing. But that was kind of a sideways way of getting to, you know, I feel like so much impact and pressure, like you said, is really on our spine. Yeah. You know, which is probably why you said one of the most common things is lower back pain, right? Which I would imagine, especially with guys in rugby, when they're doing their scrums and stuff like that, it's just like, they're just, I mean, so much power, right? Yes. Do you have a lot of lower back stuff too with them, or are they pretty? Yeah,
a lot of low back, neck, for sure. But yeah, I mean, your spine is your L5S1 is your center of gravity. Yeah. You know, so you have so many things that connect upper to lower, and that's again why everything is so connected, and you have to look at everything, especially with the spine, because there's so many contributors, and it's just such a key integral component to that upper lower half. But
I kind of feel like once it starts, I mean, from what I understand, it's like once you start to injure your back, like there's no healing it really, is it? It's just like you're just protecting it from getting worse, or like once it starts to go, is it?
I think if you target the right area, you're obviously in better shape. Yeah. To have it not recur. There is, yes, your disc can lose disc height over time, but do know that there's research that shows that even if you've herniated a disc, there's research to show that it does resorb over time. So again, the interesting brain component of that is that people hear, I've got something pushing on my nerve, danger, danger, danger. You get this heightened response, and sometimes people or their brain just doesn't let them come down from that. And so you can get some prolonged pain even if you did an image later. The disc is no longer pressing on the nerve, it is resorbed over time, but you can have some of this protection response from your brain. So now when you know, it's normal, a signal, but then it comes back down to normal. Sometimes people get this signal and then they stay up here. Well, then it doesn't take much. You're already living up here, and it doesn't take much of an impulse or signal to go, oh gosh, that hurt. So you can be more sensitive to a painful stimulus because you're now riding high versus high, and then your system drops until something else happens. Does that make sense? Totally. So I do think that is one thing that can happen in chronic low back pain. Either we're not treating the right driver perhaps, or someone just is staying high in their pain response, and it doesn't take as much. So you know, there's a couple theories that you have to kind of mold and weave through to figure out what is going on with that person. Does that make sense? Totally. Yep. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, if you have loss of disc height, Sure, can you have some episodes? Sure. But again, if you address it appropriately, I think you can at least make them less frequent. Again, I think that's a story that people tell themselves of, oh, I've got a bad back. I've always got this bad back. And I think there are things that we can do to not be the one with the bad back.
Yeah, and I ask part because I think, like you said, back issues are pretty freaking common, obviously. And then selfishly, like for me, and we've talked about this before, like if I press overhead anything outside of this area, if I go out here at all with my elbows and I'm pressing military, then I won't be able to turn my head much further beyond that, right? It just seems like it's an injury that I don't even remember where I got it.
Sure.
It must have been high school or earlier. But that's kind of frustrating because I'd like to be able to have that movement back.
Right.
But I don't know if that's just, that's what my chiropractor says, like it's just an injury and, you flare it up every single time you do it, so you just have to protect it. And in my mind, I'm like, shit, like, am I making it worse every single time I go in the gym and even I press lighter weight,
Right.
Who's to say? I just know that the sirens go off and I can't turn my head to the left.
Right. But you could that may not be a siren thing. That could be that's your movement pattern. That's a faulty movement pattern. And so you do flare. And so we should really find a good physical therapist to help you out with that. My goodness.
I hope this, someone listens. It's like,
somebody help him.
Yeah, please.
So we just need to find and figure out retrain that movement pattern and figure out what your go-to strategy is that keeps locking you up in that manner.
I've never really even brought it up with you because I've been avoiding it for years now.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, well,
that is what it is.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, how often am I pressing overhead? Like, never.
Right.
That's just more of a gym movement anyways,
Right. Right.
But I do it in the gym, so I'll skip those movements and I'll do something else.
Sure.
Just to avoid that. But it may be something we talk about on my next visit because I don't know what that would look like. It's not like I need to flare it up for you to, or maybe I do, for you to.
No, we try and find, it's called a dysfunctional, non-painful movement. So, we would find another exercise or activity that maybe we can see your faulty movement pattern in without just taking it off out of the gate. And then we don't really get very far anyway because now it's just flared up.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah.
We can look into that.
We'll look into that.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to that. I say just in wrapping this up, and it's probably like opening a can of worms right before we wrap up. But in terms of, like I know Allison's talked about, I've certainly experienced it. When you do have an injury, and the healing has taken place, it's just like, but your brain is so scared to use that part of your body again, right?
Yep.
A big part of, I feel like, of the rehab and the recovery, like you said, is just stepping into that fear of trusting your body and the muscles and everything else to work again.
Correct.
That's just repetition as well. It's like, is there any way to like shortcut that process, or is it just literally up to the individual?
If there was, it depends on
Some people are probably more scared than others, more trusting versus not trusting.
Yeah, and that's and that is when you get into that chronic pain cycle of pain beyond the normal inflammatory phase. And again, that's the challenging, tricky part with the I don't know timeline of the individual, meeting them where they're at, allowing them to trust whatever was injured, filtering through the psychosocial pieces of their own stress, their own belief system, trauma. There's a lot of other things that go into healing besides just this inflammation at this tendon, and and that's what makes everybody so unique, because there's a whole nother circle that comes into play with that is the individual and their past injury history, injury history with that, like I said, their stress, their beliefs, their belief that I can get better. and that's what makes some people heal faster and some people heal slower. It's filtering through their own history and their own story. And that's why listening to somebody's story is so important. I will take as long as somebody needs to listen to their story. I will never rush and be like, oh, like we gotta get going. We only have X amount of time, and you can, if you listen to their story and go through that process with them, it really helps to figure some things out. So I don't know if that totally answered your question, but it definitely depends, and it definitely depends on I just think really good communication and education along the way. And I've had people that I've said the same thing 17 times in 17 different ways, and all of a sudden on the 18th time, for whatever reason, they're like, oh, do you mean this? Yes, I mean this. Like, I said that, and no, you didn't. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't. That's fine. I don't care. You got it. So that happens. But it's just finding that way to communicate, reframe, educate, find that cue that works for them, that makes them connect the dots, to trust that knee, to, I had somebody actually earlier today that we were working on squatting, and she had hip and knee, and I said, you know what? She said knee pain. And I said, no, don't worry about your knee. Your knee isn't bending because you're bending your knee. Your knee is bending as a result of your ankle bending and your hip bending. And she squatted, and it was night and day different. It was totally different. And it's just because we reframed the entire situation. I cued it in a different way. It's something that worked for her. I have covered people's appendages with towels because there's just such a trauma associated with it. They have such a bad relationship with it that I said, you know what? Don't even look at it. Don't look at it. And it moves better. There's something called mirror therapy in neurological rehab, which I'm an orthopedist, but I do think I'm an neuro-orthopedist because we do incorporate so much of the nervous system. But you can trick your brain into looking into a mirror, and you only look at the uninjured appendage, and then the injured appendage moves so much better because it's got this visual of, hey, I'm okay. So I do think there's a lot of days you just have to work in a lot of different creative ways, and something that works one day may not work the next day, depending on
where you're at,
where we're at. Yep. And that's okay. Like, we just have to keep at it.
I think I've just been impressed with, like, you see the comebacks of like Adrian Peterson or Derek Rose, or like, some of the best in professional sports, and so fast. I can't speak to Derek Rose per se, but Adrian Peterson, blew out his knee and came back, and then and there's just part of it where like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to see all the work that he did, but his team as well as his mindset. I feel like the mindset really is what differentiates someone. If you get the healing there and you get the right type of surgery, or then the right type of rehab. But then my thought goes to like, man, I wish the everyday Joe could have access to that type of. But here, at least with you, like, you are working on professionals, but then you also work with the general public, which is pretty cool. So you bring so many different.
And I've taken lessons from my 92-year-old gentleman and applied them to a professional athlete, and vice versa. And that's what's really great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and I'm sure I know your schedule's always pretty full, but if someone were to be listening to this and wanted your support, how might they get in touch with you?
Website is sportsrehabconsulting.com, and my bio and email are on there, but my email is just my last name, Douhan, Douhan, at sportsrehabconsulting.com.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Thank you again for letting us kind of dive into some of the nitty gritty. And
yes, it's been fun. Thank you.
It's really, really cool. Thanks for sharing this with us. So
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll check in with you guys on the next episode. But thanks for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day. Cheers.